Apologies. Thanks for making it. I'm sorry that, hey, you can hear me. That's fantastic. Awesome. All right, let's dive in because I've spent so much time trying to figure this out. All right. So, thanks for logging on tonight. I hope that we can get to all the questions and comments. Please post any questions in the live chat, or if there's problems like all of a sudden you can't hear me. And then that way I can try to figure out what the problem is. Hey, Jody. All right. So, a couple things I wanted to really accomplish is, one thing I want to be able to do is give you some really great, hopefully insight and info into my side of gear as far as, my experiences, especially all the time I've spent. Sorry, I'm looking off to the side because I'm trying to get some information here. One thing that I want to try to do is give you some information about what it's like to do my job and really a lot of the things I've seen in 10 years that I don't think people have seen, and I don't think a lot of customers and consumers understand, especially with how difficult and how frustrating it can be to shop as a female rider and even as a male rider. I know that not just women have issues, but we have a different set of issues. And one of our biggest issues that we have is purely by our numbers. And that's something I'd like to really talk about, because a lot of, I think the majority of women riders anyway, I don't think we realize how small we are in the vast number of Americans that do ride in the United States. If you look at official stats, these numbers come from the Motorcycle Industry Council. They're the ones who fund the research and hire whoever it is to figure out kind of what the current state of women riders are. So when you see numbers in magazine articles, newspaper stories about 14% of women are riding motorcycles, or X% of women are riding, that all comes from our friends at the Motorcycle Industry Council. And without their support, we wouldn't have that information. So our quote official number right now as it stands is 14%. And half of that 14%, and that's 14% of Americans. So we're talking about the United States only. I'm not talking about Europe or Mexico or Canada or any other country, really just here, our country. So of the millions of motorcyclists, only 14% are female, and that 14% number also includes passengers. So almost half of our gear choices are dictated by women who do not drive on a daily basis. That greatly impacts what choices I get as a driver if Joe over here is shopping for his girlfriend who only rides once a year with him or a couple times a year and has zero interest and doesn't care whether the gear she's wearing does A or B or C or D. She just wants to make sure she's covered up and protected. Or he may not even care and he just wants to put her in something that'll work and will protect and be comfortable, but isn't concerned about, doesn't need other color choices, don't need better functionality, don't need advanced technical features, not concerned. And a lot of those choices also kind of end up trickling, I guess, down or up per se, to the choices or decisions that are made by these companies that are making gear for us. I had a really great discussion once with basically the VP of a very prominent manufacturing brand that we are all very, very well aware of. I'm not going to say his name, but I will tell you that when he asked me about footwear choices for his wife, I explained that, you know, her choices are very different from mine. And what she wants to wear is a completely other end of the room, just such a different choice than what I would choose for myself. Due to the fact that I ride a lot more than she does, I need very different things when I ride. I require more protection, I need more protection, and I want more. So my choice is totally different. And as much as I'm sure she adores those cute little shoes, and I'm sure she loves them, I wouldn't refute that, please don't make that the number one choice. Please make it one of the choices, but please don't let that take a front seat or be pushed ahead of my more technical and safer choice, because you have to consider my voice too, and not just your wife as a casual rider. So for me, when there's just so many things that attribute to the choices we have. I think there's also things that as female riders that we can do to influence our fellow female riders that's going to increase our choices and make them better. But even if, let's just say that we were able to convert the other 7%, right? Total number is 14%. If we were able to convert the other 7% of women, okay, gear up to the max, spend more money, put on the best stuff. Okay, even if we could do that, we still have a very, very large hurdle. And that's the fact that many brands that we encounter, they're not American brands solely. They are international brands, and international brands have to make money. This is still a business. And this is where I'm going to defend my industry vehemently, because every time I talk to someone about women's gear, it's always negative. And there's never any positive feedback. And I'm going to say that I think we do a really good job. I think we do a damn good job given those numbers. I haven't done the homework, but I would love to see what comparable options are available in technical performance wear in other outdoor industries for women, like climbing or skiing or whatever. I'm sure there are other outdoor sports where men dominate and women are the minority, and therefore our choices are much smaller. I'm sure there are many sports, I don't know, hockey. I'm sure there are other ones where only 14% of the 100 are playing these sports. And motorcycling is still, I think it's still a sport. It's not it shouldn't be taken as a hobby, in my opinion. And due to the demand, I think that a lot of people make on my industry, we're getting a lot of casual choices that don't really offer, I'm going to say, any protection. Sure, they say that they offer some, but when it comes down to it and you look at what they're really offering you up against a real choice, so to speak, that will do a lot more to protect your body, to me these other choices just don't come close. But the fact that a lot of these brands, they're not just here to make us things, they have to make stuff for the whole world, for females in other countries, and women in other countries might have even lower numbers. I don't know. I don't know if Europe, for example, if they have a MIC sort of system or some company or organization to provide those kinds of statistics. I should have done my homework to kind of see what those numbers are, and I would guess that they're not that much higher than our numbers. I would say maybe 20%, but I don't know, that number is really just coming out of nowhere. If you have any info about kind of the European Union or anything along that line, I would certainly love to see it. But for me, one of the really difficult aspects is just the fact that so much comes from the international motorcycling world, and we are just a sliver of that, and we aren't necessarily the majority in that. So you have to remember that a lot of these companies, they got to make money, and for a lot of them, the women's lines are not profitable. They're not making a lot of money off of them, and they provide them as a resource because they know it's important, but they're actually losing money up against the men's lines. The other thing is that I think that a lot of these gear companies too, they're not the best at making clothes, and there are a million more right choices when you're buying just jeans and t-shirts, and even finding companies that make a really good pair of pants, for example. Finding brands that know how to just make clothing. Just imagine a suit for work, dress clothes for your job, uniforms, work clothing. Just trying to find that in and of itself can be a challenge for a lot of women. You know, and given that challenge, now a company is tasked with providing really great clothing, and it has to protect you. So those two things together, now that task is a million times more difficult. And one thing that I've found is why I think it's extremely difficult, especially for larger women, to find things, is because the clothing and fashion industry already ignores larger women, especially high fashion, right? You can't find high-end designer wear like Marc Jacobs or, whatever other fancier designers. They're not making size 16, 18, 20 dresses and outfits. They're completely ignoring a huge customer base. So if the regular fashion clothing industry isn't paying attention, how do we get the brands, how do we get motorcycle manufacturers to do that? I honestly don't know that they know how. There are really, I think, only a handful of brands that actually understand how to make gear that's appropriately sized for larger women. Olympia really comes to mind. I think they do, Olympia Motorsports, I think they do the best job. Number one. I would say they are number one as far as when I see women wear their jackets and pants, that they really know how to fit a woman's legs and hips, and a curvy woman anyway. And I think they really know what they're doing in that side. I don't know though how we get more brands to kind of follow that, but it involves so much more than just, okay, let's make a whole new product line, because that in and of itself is a very difficult endeavor. So there's a lot of obstacles, and there's also a lot to it as far as trying to get better options. But as far as what we can do, or what you can do as a consumer, I think first and foremost, communicating your issues and concerns to brands, to whether it's on their Facebook page, whether it's through their social media channels, certainly your dealers. And to me, even brands that have really great options, like Olympia, for example, finding dealerships or finding stores that know how to properly fit and sell the apparel, that right there is a huge hurdle. And there aren't enough, in my opinion, good dealers and good shops that are even interested in carrying any women's apparel, because we are a smaller sliver. And there has to be interest. If they don't care, if a dealership says, I don't care about my female customer base, then they're never going to carry any options for you, because they just don't care. and they'd rather focus on the more profitable aspects of the business, like parts and bike sales and labor for service. So that's a lot of, I think, a lot of the reason why you're seeing such a lack of options in your local stores, because it's a costly endeavor to bring on product lines like Olympia or First Gear or Revit, especially your premium brands, the ones that actually do fit really well. It's an investment, and they have to want to make that investment, and not enough dealers actually even have the desire to draw in their female customer base, or even try to do a better job at catering to the female. And that right there is just a whole nother issue that we often have issues with, just being a female customer and walking into your local motorcycle dealership and getting good customer service. Just that right there, aside from gear, just being treated equally and treated respectfully, that's extremely difficult. So there are all these components, I think, that all have to work together, come together in order to give us really good options, and it's not going to happen overnight. But I do want to say that, look back 10 years and see how many options have really come on board, and I would say a lot more better options have evolved since then. There are also brands such as Olympia and Revit who've been here in the United States for a long time, and they've spent a lot of time to redevelop and update their clothing lines to make them better. And I wish all brands would attempt to do that, but not all brands are, and not all brands care about us in order to improve that. I think also some brands don't know how. They just don't know how. And, rather than invest time and money to make it better, it's probably just easier just to keep on going just the way they've been going. And, if the pink stuff sells, let's just keep selling. Why change anything? And, why upset the few, whatever percentage of customers we already have and change things and make them better? There's I don't want to blame an entire gender, but if you look at the majority of manufacturers available to us, most of them are run by men, and they have no clue. They have no idea. How do we make the jackets better? They have no idea what they're doing with the women's lines. They don't know that they need to make sure that hip gussets are available in all their jackets, so that women who do need room for their hips have the space, but the women that don't need room can also, close a gusset to make it fit them. They don't know that they should never use men's armor in women's jackets, especially smaller sizes, because someone like me, I need much smaller body armor than, say, my husband, who's much bigger than me and requires much larger body armor. They don't know that they can't just take a man's form and then make it smaller to really fit us properly. They don't know that with pants, if they would just provide a little better, if they could kind of reevaluate their pant options to fit American women better, that they would probably sell 10,000 more pairs of pants, because pants are really difficult to sell to women. But then you got to teach everyone who's selling your pants and your jackets how to sell things better. So there's just a whole nother, that's a whole nother level of detail as well that's being missed. And not just missed, but I think that it's just really difficult to put together and find organizations and stores and people that really care enough to want to learn, want to educate, want to inform, and get the right help. So I think I think this really is a problem that has to be solved from it has to be worked on and improved from so many different areas. But I think that what it also will come down to is just the fact that our numbers are very small, and that the 7% of us who really need good, who want to buy and will pay for really good options, we're not going to get it until we get at least 30-40% out there who are actually, females who are driving and owning motorcycles and as well. And so I think what we can do on our end, and what I try to do, is just talk to every female rider that I can, and help inform, help answer questions, just to try to help our fellow female riders as much as possible. We have to, we have to also try to get in these dealerships and work there. So when I started, I walked in and I asked the owner, when I started working at Scuderia, I was lucky that half of the owner was a woman, and she cared about female gear because she rode and she wanted to provide options. But I can guarantee you that unless a woman is either at the top or a part owner, it's never going to happen, because priority-wise, it's just something that's very low, I think, for a lot of male owners and operators at these dealerships and stores. So we have to get in there. We have to either become mechanics, we have to get in there, become saleswomen, we have to get in there and start running our own motorcycle businesses to really affect change, at least for the kind of everyday consumer, so that as dealerships evolve and as they change hands, and hopefully as more women are owning them and running them and operating them, then the priorities will shift a little bit so that we can get a little bit more attention, as much attention as the men. But I bet you that if you ask any women who work at dealerships and who have really good selections, so I see on the chat feed, Eurosport in Asheville has a really great female salesperson. It looks like another Triumph dealer in Richmond, Virginia, who carries a really nice, it looks like a growing variety of brands, and they have really nice salespeople as well who enjoy, or who it looks like, who know how to fit women's gear. But I bet if you ask them, what percentage of your customers are female, they're going to give you a pretty low number, 20%. Maybe, I'm sure there are probably niche stores. Like for me, Scuderia is one of those niche stores, because San Francisco has so many female riders, and it just in the state, right? California has a lot of people registering motorcycles and scooters. San Francisco was one of the more concentrated locations where females were riding and driving scooters and motorcycles. So I saw a lot of women come in there. I wouldn't say half though, but I would say about 30-40% of people who came in to shop for gear were women. But I think that's a really unusual statistic. But like at Revzilla, for example, in the boutique, sadly, not 50% of customers who come in are women. It's more like 20. And we get people from all over the world, not just Philadelphia. I think we have a pretty good sampling of people from all over, whether it's California, it could be Alaska, it could be someone from Peru, it could be someone from Germany, someone visiting from India, China, all over the world people come in to shop. And then all over the United States, people drive in. They could drive in from Canada, they drive in from Virginia, they drive in from Florida, they drive in from all over the place. And I wish 50% of women, of the customers there, were women, but they're not. It's got to be more like 20%, because there are days where my women's wall is untouched, days where my boots wall is untouched. And I hope one day it'll be half the people that come in to shop are women who are actually buying product, not just accompanying their male friends and customers. So there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of issues. So I want to at least get to some questions and feedback. Jody doesn't, yeah, I totally agree with you, Jody. Jody says, it bugs me that people who make gear always seem to have mostly pink or purples. And you know, I totally agree with you, Jody. However, what is fact is they make it because it sells. It actually does sell. And the reason it sells is because half of our 14, and this is what I believe. I know this isn't backed up by factual evidence or data, but this is what I believe based on my experience, that because half of that 14% are passengers, they like the pink and the purple. And I will tell you that is true, because it's true more often than not. When passengers come in to shop for gear, a lot of them are asking for pinks and purples. Because I think that a lot of passengers who ride occasionally, for them, their perspective is very different. And wearing pink or purple is awesome because they're engaging in an activity that they normally wouldn't engage in. I think to them that they perceive as very masculine, and the pink and purple draws them in rather than all this technical gear that's just black and silver. And they want it. They're buying it. There's a reason why Climb a few years ago came out with their altitude suit in pink stitching, black with pink stitching. The customers actually wanted it. They sell. Pink things sell. They're not selling to you and I, Jody, but they are selling. Beth, you want to know how much of the Vizilla boutique is devoted to women's gear? About 25%. At least if you look at the clothing walls, 25%. And that's because I asked for it. My boss is amazing. He let me have it. If you go to Google and you look up the Revzilla boutique, you can actually do a Google 360 walkthrough of the store. So you can actually go inside the store through Google and actually see each wall and walk all the way to the back right. That's the ladies' wall. There's also 1/3 of the boot wall is also women's. So far more than just 14% of that store is dedicated to women. It's probably the only store in the country where you can see all the highest, all the premium brands in one place. And you know, I still can't carry, I can't carry everything that I want to carry, but I get a really good selection. I get to put together a nice collection that I think works for a lot of people. A little more on the technical side, less on the purple and the pink side, of course. But take a look. Go to Google right now. Pull it up on Google Maps. It's 4020 South 26th Street, Philadelphia, and check out the Google 360. I hope you will come up someday and check it out. So that's where I'm kind of babbling at this point, but I know that options are not plentiful, and for some women, I will tell you that the sweet spot for women's gear is when you're a US size 4, 6, all the way to 14, 12, 14. So if you're a 10, everything fits you. If you're an 8, you're a 6, everything fits you. Even 12, everything fits you, because that's the majority of women are at least shopping anyway. But we know that in the United States, the majority of women are not average sized 8, right? We know the average size of a female in the United States is about a 12. If you Google, there's a lot of articles and information, but I want to say 12 to 14. So the average woman is not below a dress size 12, 10. And actually when you start dropping below a 6, then you actually start losing options. Since I've started working out and since I've lost a little weight, since I moved here, thanks Pennsylvania, I have started to get undersized in my options. So I'm starting to fall into the too small category. And so you actually do want to stay up at the kind of 8-10 side, because every single piece of gear you see will be sized for you. As far as fitting you is a different issue, but there is kind of a sweet spot in there. Oh, I'm so glad you had a good time at the store, Jody. Beth, you'll have to come up, make a field trip, make it a ride, nice week-long ride, and check it out. But in the meantime, check out the Google 360. I do want to address some emails that I got, and let me just pull up really quickly. So it's also extremely difficult for a lot of women who are outside kind of the average proportions. Good example, if you're 6 foot tall and you're probably somewhere in the size, well, I've dealt with customers who are everything from a size 4, but at 6 foot, so extremely slender, right? Very underweight for the height. If you're 6 foot tall and 120 pounds, then you're definitely under the average weight. So no, there won't be options for you. If, right, just finding a regular top or shirt or sweater is probably extremely difficult. So then trying to find technical motorcycle gear, forget it. I don't know, I wish there was a better answer for that, but your extreme proportions, where either you're really tall and very slim, or just really small, maybe you're 5 foot tall, and you're a dress size 24. Nope, you're not going to find any technical or any motorcycle gear, really. Maybe jackets. I'd say jackets, because jackets outsell pants, and more women are willing to wear jackets than they are to wear pants, partly because it's difficult to find pants, but also because it's very difficult just to find regular clothes, right, at that size and proportion. Yeah, see, Worst for Wear. Oh, thank you, Worst for Wear. By the way, if you're looking for custom, I believe they do custom fitted jeans. Worst for Wear, you need to clarify that for me so that I'm accurate. But Worst for Wear is a U.S. company. I believe she's based in North Carolina, around Asheville, and she makes premium riding jeans, different sizes, different inseams for women, all made in the US. So the price points are going to be a little bit higher, but you get a really well-made product, really good protection as well. I believe lots of armor. Yep. So custom fitted, but if you want something custom fitted, you're going to pay for it. But if it fits you really well and you can wear it for a really long time, then it's worth the investment, right? Yeah, you will certainly have to do something custom fitted if you're really extreme on that end. But I think that just overall, I mean, gear manufacturers they're not the Gap, they're not Old Navy, they're not Banana Republic, they're not selling to the millions, so they don't know how to make, I don't think they really know how to make a proper pant that would fit almost every woman. I think a couple brands come really close, like really, really close. I think that, again, Olympia does a really good job. I think Revit, well, they're my favorite. Revit does a phenomenal job to fit as many different kinds of women as possible. And that's something that I really love about them. It's why I'm very much loyal to them as a brand. If 10 women walk into my store, I can absolutely fit half of them, at least half of them in Revit, if you give me a variety of women and body types. Only, I'd say, extreme proportional issues prohibit me from fitting women in Revit, but they're such a versatile brand, because if you don't fit one outfit, you can probably fit 5 other ones, because their fitments aren't the exact same in every single thing that they make. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. For me, it's a good thing, because then I can give women more options for fitment. And something that you have to, Worst for Wear is in Richmond, Virginia. Something that you have to also remember is that, I think my brain's shutting down. Something else that we have to also remember is that these brands are providing, I think, a lot of brands, not Revit and Olympia, but a lot of them are providing women's gear as an afterthought. Oh, we should have a women's line. Yeah, let's have one. But there's really not a lot of thought after that. What I really wish is they would just walk into an Old Navy and just copy the pants. They don't have to tell anybody. I mean, I'm sure it's not quite legal, but why can't they just look at really great American brands that make clothes that fit women of all sizes and just copy it? But it's more, I think there's really more to it than that. I mean, the cost and the investment is exorbitant. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars to create product lines with the correct fitments alone is really difficult. Getting seaming right for women is really hard, especially with performance wear. And so you have to also remember that this isn't mall shopping, and you have to put away your experience at a mall and just forget that you ever even shop at a mall, and forget about the 100 white t-shirt choices you might have in a mall. And remember that with motorcycle gear, you're going to get 3 really good choices, maybe 4 or 5 if you're in that sweet spot of a size 10. Then you'll have 50 really good, fitted choices. But I think one thing a lot of women expect is they're walking into the mall. It's not. Sorry, it's just not the way this goes. This is, with motorcycle gear, this is performance technical wear, and it's safety equipment. You have to also remember this is stuff to save your body, to protect your body. You're not going to get 20 different jeans to choose from like you do at Old Navy. It's not going to happen. You have to compromise. And when you get into motorcycling, whether it's buying a motorcycle, whether it's gearing up for your motorcycle, whether it's learning how to ride your motorcycle, you're always going to compromise. Always. And if you're not ready to make any compromises, you're going to have a very miserable experience in motorcycling, because your motorcycle demands that you compromise in one way or another every time you make a choice, because your choices will never be the same, and you're always going to have to give up something. And for me, it is painful for women to walk into the store, look at my wall and say, this is it? Like, this is it? I have 40 jackets, I think, if I count all of them. I've got like 18 pairs of pants. When's the last time you walked into a motorcycle dealership with more than one pair of women's pants? And then I've got 12 pairs of boots on a wall. And then I've got, 20 pairs of gloves to choose from. No, I'm not gonna have 100 of the same thing for you to choose from. But I'm going to give you 3 really good ones so that you don't have to try to make up your mind between 40. There's a really great article and TED Talk about choice, and the fact that when your choices go up, your satisfaction goes down. As soon as you start seeing 100 of the same thing, now you don't even want to make a decision anymore, because you're faced with so much stuff, you can't make a decision. So please compromise a little bit. Please lower your expectations just a little bit, but I will show you some really good choices. And I'm not saying the industry is perfect, and I'm not saying that everything's great, but I'm saying that there are some really good things out there, and that most of the time you don't see them. You're not going to see them. If you live in, say, a really small town or maybe a small city, no, you're not going to see anything. You'll see one store that offers 2 options, maybe 3, but that store is a sliver, a tiny, tiny little sliver of what's available. But even what's available is still for 14% of the American market, of motorcycles that are being ridden in the United States. Remember, 14%. And sure, if we pad it, maybe 18%, maybe 20%. But 20 is still not anywhere near, it's not half. So the other thing that I would love to, I hope will happen someday is that don't worry, Jody, they are not pink and purple. Some brands, Jody, are going to just straight pink and purple, but I would say that's not the majority of brands. But hey, we can't bash pink and purple. If a woman wants pink or purple, she should be able to make that choice to pick that color, where I get to pick black if I want black. Why can't we all have different choices, as long as you don't thrust pink and purple at me first and assume that I want pink and purple just because of my gender? That's where we get in trouble, and that's where brands need to step back and take a minute and figure out who is actually going to buy their product and why. But a lot of the times, brands that only offer pink and purple, Jody, those brands are all they have, and they don't have anything else because the product is that bad. All they can do is put some glitter on it, put some cute little colors on it, and hope that it sells to you, because the product itself would not sell otherwise because it's that bad. Most of the time, every time I've seen anything that's glittered or pink or purple or with flowers on it, I can only think of one brand that had florals, two brands that had florals on it at one point. Dainese had like a flower pattern on a track jacket, and I think they learned very quickly that Dainese customers do not want floral on their track jackets. But most of the time when I've seen really ugly pink and purple things, it's because the gear sucks and it's really cheap, so all they can do is sell it with glitter. Don't worry, Jody, there's a lot more choices that are just plain black or silver without pink and purple on it. But again, those options that you see are probably mostly framed by what you've physically seen in a store in your area, and they are never great. They're really difficult. It's difficult to find dealerships, right, that actually have selections that are varied, from some pink and purple stuff to some high-end stuff that has no pink and purple. Actually, I think it took like 8 years or 6 years for even Revit to bring back pink and purple, because they did pastel pink and blue, and that went bad. They had a pastel pink and blue mesh jacket one year, like 7 years ago, and I think it backfired on them big time, and they'd realize, okay, our customers do not want pink and purple or blue. Okay, so they put away the pink and blue, and I think they brought back pink, actually, fuchsia, actually, bright, like it's even just a stripe. It's like stripes, it's not even florals or anything, and they brought that back this year, but at least in a more tasteful sense. But I don't think there's anything wrong with pink or purple. Just please don't use it. Please don't use it as the way to sell me what you're trying to sell. Sell me how safe it is. Tell me how protective it is. Tell me how waterproof it is. Tell me how the zippers are. Show me how well it works. But don't assume I want pink or purple just because I have boobs. It's not the way, and that goes for anything. That's like in the cycling world. If you're a cyclist, I'm sure you see that all the time. Or other like performance industry sports like snowboarding or skiing. I'm sure pink and purple is probably thrown around all the time. This is where I see it, just being in the motorcycle things, but I've seen it in the handgun world, that girl things are pink and blue a lot of the time. So I feel like the pink and purple thing is totally prevalent in a lot of industries where they're trying to bring in more female customers, not just motorcycling. See, Kate makes a good point. Maybe we should be thankful that we'll never be overwhelmed like the guys. I totally agree with you, Kate, because imagine having, I know it sounds great, but what if you had 20 jackets that are all the same? The quality's all the same, the protection, and they have like minor differences that change the price point from $220 to $230, you know, and there's only $10 incremental differences. How do you make a choice? Like, do you want to wade through 20 different things that look exactly the same? Or do you want to have like 5 amazing things? Like, okay, boom, boom, boom. I don't think I've ever had that many choices. Although I'm pretty picky, that's something else, ladies. I think sometimes we can be a little picky. I know there are men out there who are very picky too. I think in general, people are very particular. So again, that's where the compromise comes in. You gotta compromise maybe a little bit, just a little. You don't have to completely give up your personal philosophies and morals, but just have open mind. And that's where I try to encourage at least my customers, just even if you have no intention of buying that, you don't like the color, just put it on, because you never know what you might feel. You never know if a brand might offer something else in their catalog, because a lot of brands offer 5 different things, but a store may only be able to afford to put one thing out. So that's also why you don't see a lot of choices in stores, because it's really expensive. If you have a store that's like 1,000 square feet, how much money you have to come up with to put down $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 worth of apparel that you probably won't sell for at least 6 months. And to have all that product out, that's an investment, and that's not an investment that everybody wants to make. And that's why you always see the pink and purple things, because most of the time the pink and purple things are the most profitable. That jacket costs $150, but it probably only costs that dealer $40, $50 to bring it in. And he probably doesn't have to do anything to sell it. It's over on a mannequin somewhere with glittery things on it, and he's expecting it to sell itself. And there will be women who buy it. I'm sure there will be women who don't buy it, but there will be women who will. And they're going to keep putting it out there because they're making such good margins on it. So one thing you can do is talk to your dealer. Like, hey, I want you to know that I'm a customer. I wish you had these options. You know, I have 5 friends who also ride. They would love to shop here if you had these kinds of options. Shoot, offer, maybe if your dealer is a nice person and maybe they just have no idea. They're just clueless. You know, they wish they could understand, or they wish they knew what to do, but maybe they don't. Maybe you can offer some help as to, you know, what options your particular store should carry, or give them some feedback like, hey, you know, wish you would carry Olympia in here, or hey, do you think you can get Revit in here, or whoever, whatever the brand is. I'm sure you can, you know, talk to your dealerships, talk to your store owners and your managers, and see what they say. Yes, Mrs. Worse for Wear, I hope you come and visit Revzilla. It would be awesome to meet you. So I think I've kind of said everything that I wanted to say. If you have any kind of other comments or questions, please, I hope you'll post in the chat thread here. I do want to pull up another email that I got. I also want to kind of talk about some of the changes in gear and kind of how the options have changed. One thing that I've seen is that 2 things. There's been an explosion, and I would say a full-on explosion of casual apparel, clothing that looks like casual clothing. So, you know, jackets that look just like something you'd wear to work. Those always come at a price, almost always, 9 times out of 10, they come at a price. And they come at, you're either gonna lose some protection, or you're going to lose some comfort because you're going to gain the style and the fashion. So I feel like we are dictating, we are telling the industry, this is what you should make for us. Forget about all that other stuff. We don't need protection, we don't need anything else. This is what you should make for us. But really, it's the industry's job to tell us, no, this is actually what you need. You are riding a motorcycle, you aren't in a car, you don't have seat belts, you don't have an airbag. These are things that you do not have. You actually need, you need a boot like this. You need a jacket that actually has these things, and this is why. think there's like a huge lack of education and information that's not coming out from these brands, and these brands know how to make motorcycle gear. They know the technical aspects, they know the feature requirements, and they know what works for riders in terms of, performance. They should be telling us. But I think we've really been telling them, and now we get things that really aren't going to offer us much protection because we've told them, no, we really don't want to wear any kind of boots with real protection. Can't you just give me what I can buy at the mall and I'll buy it from you instead? But now you've pretty much lost any protection you thought you might have, because the afterthought of protection they're offering you, that little sliver of, quote, Kevlar or whatever material, because not everybody uses DuPont Kevlar, it's useless because they've completely stripped out everything else on this pant or jacket or glove or whatever to please you as a consumer. So I urge you to remember that you're on a motorcycle, and that it's not just like walking down the street or riding a bicycle, and that it's a sport and activity that could kill you, and that you could hurt someone else, more importantly, because you're not riding well, because your skills are so poor, because you're distracted by the lack of gear you're wearing, that you could hurt somebody else. And it's really selfish to say, well, I'm not riding crazy, I'm okay. But it's not always about you. And there are other people on the road like me. I might be riding next to you, or Jody could be riding in front of you. And if you make a mistake because you're either not geared up or your riding skills just aren't really what they should be, then that's not my fault. That's really yours. But that's where you have a lot of control there. So I think that also, there's a lot of, I think, choices we have to make as riders to make sure that we are safe, but also, safety for those around us as well. Oh, look, I'm back. I'll just close up now since I'm pretty much finishing at this point. So if you have more questions, we can always come back and chat more again next week. But I hope that gives you some things to think about. I just kind of wandered off randomly and threw out everything in my brain that's been swirling around in there. In the meantime, I hope you'll visit my website. I hope you'll send some emails, send some messages. Hopefully my stream comes back up in a minute. And I will catch you hopefully next Monday. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Kind of see what things I might have missed, but I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into our industry and the problems that I see. So thanks for joining me. This is one question. I'm going to answer this really quick before I go. So any suggestions other than talking to the local dealerships about how we can change what the manufacturers put out there would be welcome. Well, you can contact your manufacturers. They have Facebook channels, they have social feeds, they certainly have contact points on their websites. Email them directly, definitely. Give them any feedback you have via email or even phone. If they have a phone number, you should call them. But I'd say certainly contact them and voice your concerns or communicate feedback. They certainly value it, at least the brands I've talked to. They're always happy to hear from customers. But if you can't reach them through their social channels like Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, then I would send an email. I think I would love the idea of like collecting feedback and providing that. I know that a few different companies and individuals have put together surveys in the last year or two about gear, and I think that kind of discussion and like roundtable information would be really useful to manufacturers. I think I'll have to think about that and see how that would work. Maybe we can do a Google Hangout. Maybe I can set up a more interactive stream and that we can all discuss at the same time. Maybe invite some brands to chat and answer questions and give feedback. That could be something. I'll have to ruminate about that. I hope that answers your question. All right, I'm going to leave you. I thank you for joining. I'm sorry for the technical issues that I had, but next week I'll be at MotoGP, so I will not be online. But if you're at MotoGP, look for me. Otherwise, I will be back online for a stream in 2 weeks and figure out what the topic should be soon and post that. I'll post that. Look on my blog for the next live stream topic. But thanks for joining, and I'll talk to you later.